Hey everyone, this is Modest Millions, and today we're kicking off our TSM Beginners series. And today we're going to be covering some terms, the setup, our basic overview of TSM, and getting started. If you're just finding the channel or you haven't already, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on the rest of this series, as well as our daily gold guides for all levels of WoW Goblins. So let's go. Alright everyone, so we have all gathered here today to learn something new about TSM. Trade Skill Master is an amazingly powerful tool that you can use to boost your gold making setup. It gives you almost everything that you could ever ask when it comes to crafting or anything that deals with the auction house. And since it gives you so much, it is extremely daunting for new and old players alike. So hopefully with this series, I can help you understand a little bit more about Trade Skill Master and help you better get your setup rolling on your server. So there are going to be a couple things that we're going to cover today, and those are general setup of the desktop app and the functioning, as well as the TSM website and downloading the add-on, general terms for TSM, the TSM auction house, the TSM main panel, as well as the crafting panel and task list. These areas are going to get you started with each aspect of TSM, and following the guides that I'm putting up on Trade Skill Master will elaborate more and more each time on specific areas and how you can optimize those areas, so don't miss out on those upcoming videos. So let's talk about the general setup. First off, you want to start by coming over here to tradeskillmaster.com, creating your account, and then coming down here and downloading the TSM desktop app. And then you can download the TSM add-on from CurseFord. And now that you have everything downloaded, let's talk about the desktop app. This is a great essential tool that you have all of your realms data on. Now let's set up your profile on the website. You simply need to log in and set up the server that you're on and the server that you want TSM to track prices, sales, and all your info for. And that's all shown here. The next part of the desktop app is a very crucial one, and that is the backups. So this keeps a local backup of all your profile information, including your ledger data, your groups, your lists, all of the data that TSM collects while you're playing. This is very important to remember when you're starting out and making your own groups and working on your setup, because sometimes with updates from WoW, TSM has an update as well, and every now and then your data may get lost on one of the new updates and get erased. So if it does, don't worry. Come over here to the backups and double click a date and time that you know your TSM was running with all of your groups, and then relog back on, and it will have everything that you had before. So now that we've talked about the setup of the desktop app, downloading TSM, and now we need to jump into TSM itself in the game. Let's start out by covering some terms. So general terms for Trade Skill Master that you're going to see. You're going to hear people reference these a lot, and I really want you to understand what they mean whenever you say them, so you're not wondering what we're talking about. So the first couple of terms are pretty easy. So we have average buy price and average sell price. That just simply means the average price that you buy the item or average price that you sell the item. Then you also have max buy price, max sell price, min buy price, and min sell price. These are also pretty self-explanatory, and it's just the max buy price, the max sell price, and then vice versa with the min buy price and the min sell price. And then you have smart average buy. Now this actually is a new addition in 4.1. The smart average buy price is a very crucial information piece, and it tells you your price average that you have bought the item, and it creates the average from a quantity of items that you currently possess. So if for some reason you look at an item on the auction house and you don't see a smart average buy next to it, that means that you don't currently have any of that particular item bought. Now moving on, let's go to the TSM crafting. So you have the crafting, which is just the crafting cost of the item. And then you also have mat price. And this is a specific cost of a specific material in the game. Next, we have destroy, vendor buy, and vendor sell. So the destroy price is the value that you get from milling, prospecting, or disenchanting a certain item. The vendor buy price is what you can buy that item for from a vendor. And the vendor sell price is what you're going to get when you sell it to a vendor. And then you have the operation max, min, and normals. Now the auctioning operation max, min, and normals, they will tell you when you set an operation for a certain craft what the minimum price, the normal, and the maximum price for that operation for that craft will be posted at, as well as the shopping operation max and snipe operation max, which will tell you the same thing when you set operations for your shopping list and your sniper. Then you have the auction DB terms. These are the ones that you're going to hear most commonly used. You have DB min buyout. This is the lowest priced auction currently on your server's auction house. You also have DB market, which is the 14-day average of the listed prices on your server, as well as DB historical, which is a 60-day average of your DB market for your server. Along with those, you have DB region min buyout average. This is the average DB min buyout across all servers in your region. Then you have the DB region market average, which is the average of the DB market for all servers in your region. The DB region historical, which is the 60-day average of the DB region market average. And then you have the DB region sale average, and this is the average sale price of an item on your server. Now, keep in mind that this information is only collected from people that use TSM. And the last two terms are num expires and sell rate. So the num expires is simply how many times you posted the item before the item sold. And the sell rate is a percentage chance of your item selling when you post it. So for example, if an item shows you that it's 0.2, that means that there is a 20% chance you will sell the item every time you post it. Alright, so now when you open up your auction house, it should look something like this. Now there are a bunch of parts to this, and it's not going to look like this right off the bat. These are my groups that I've personally made on this tune. So your first tab is the Browse tab, and this is going to show you your base group, which is just the one that comes generic with TSM, along with some other groups that you have here that you can set up for yourself. So on this first page, think of this as your starting point and your search point. You can do searches on the auction house here. So say I wanted to search shrouded cloth. So I can hit that and it'll pull up everything with shrouded in the name, and I can see right here shrouded cloth. Now you go back, you can see your recent searches as well. So if you want to research something and look and see what the prices are again, you can do that here. You can also favorite searches. So if you come over here and click on this, it will favorite a search and put it on your favorites list so that you can find the ones that you want to continuously search. And then the final part of the Browse tab is that when you have your groups set up, you can actually click them and then do a shopping scan, and it will bring up everything that's under that group. Now this is a huge group here that has all of my tailoring items and the materials needed for those tailoring items. So this scan would go on for a very, very long time. Now, if I come over here and I do more specific scan, I can click here on my Shadowlands cooking profile and only click on Shadowlands materials and do a shopping scan here. And it will bring up everything right here in our search bar. And as you can see here, this is actually a really good price right off the bat for the tenebrous ribs. I'm going to buy those out. And then there are these three parts right here, and we'll get into those later on another video that goes more in depth into the browsing functions. But for the beginner stage purpose, we'll just look at these and we'll say we're not going to talk about the advanced item search. And then we have the disenchant search and the vendor search. What this is it's essentially TSM searching all of the auction house on your server. And the disenchant search is going to tell you which items have a higher disenchant value than their actual cost on the auction house. So if I hit a scan here, it may take us just a minute to start seeing some items, but you can see here this item right here. We will pause it here so that I can show you what I'm talking about. So this item is selling for 5 gold and 49 silver on the auction house. However, if you look over here at the tooltip and look down at the TSM general info and the disenchant value, it has a disenchant value of 20 gold and 53 silver. That means that if that mat actually sells, I'll make almost a 19 gold profit on disenchanting that item, as well as the vendor search tab. Now the vendor search tab is just a little bit different, and that is it's going to search for items that vendor more than what the actual cost on the auction house is. So if you look here with the briny flesh, you're looking at buying this out for 4 silver, and you can sell it to a vendor for 6 silver and 25 copper. And this is a nice little addition to just look at every now and then. Now, moving on to the auctioning tab, there are a couple things that we need to talk about in here as well. This also has all of your groups, including the base TSM group, and this also shows you recent scans and your favorited scans, as well as allows you to make post scans and cancel scans. What a post scan is it searches your bags under a specific group or under the base group and searches for items that are in your bags that you should list on the auction house. And then also a cancel scan shows you the items that you have been undercut on the auction house and which ones you should take back off the auction house and then relist. And so that you can see how this works, if you take my Shadowlands cooking, look at the materials, I know I have some materials in my bag, and you click it and it highlights, you can hit run post scan. Now this is going to tell me which of the items I'm going to be listing and then which ones are actually below a minimum price that I have set, which we'll get into later. And if you want to here, you can run a cancel scan. You can select a group and then hit cancel scan, and it will tell you which items you are currently the lowest on and which ones you have been undercut on. Then once this scan is complete, you can actually sit here and cancel the items that you have listed that you've been undercut on. And then to get those items back up on the auction house, you'll simply exit the cancel scan, keep that same group, and then run a post scan to repost those items once you've collected them from your mailbox. Moving on to the next part of TSM here on the auction house, we're not going to touch much on this because it does take its own video to get used to, but this is TSM Sniper. And what this does is when you set a certain value or a certain range of values for items, you can actually search the auction house to see if any of those items are selling very cheap or under a certain price that you have set. So we'll come back to that in its own separate video. And then finally, the My Auctions tab. This is going to show you all of the auctions that you have up on the auction house right now, how many have sold, and then what your current posted value is and how many items. You can also select specific items under this to go ahead and cancel or skip if you don't want to do a full cancel scan and you only want to cancel and relist certain items that you already know. You can also filter these, so you can filter these by less than 30 minutes, 30 minutes to 2 hours, greater than 12 hours. You can also filter these by groups, and once you have your groups set up, you can actually just look at the items that you have up on the auction house under these set groups. And then you can also use the keyword filter here to actually search for items that you have listed. So if I want to search for my deep sea bags, I can do that, and it'll show me exactly the prices, and it will only show me the deep sea bags or the item that starts with deep. So deep frozen cord also came up here. And then another part of the TSM auction house that I will reference a couple of times is the info, and you find that right here under this little circle. Now this data is very important to know because this tells you how old the current data that is going to be shown through your TSM tooltip is. Currently my auction DB realm data is 2 hours and 34 minutes old. And this is good to keep in mind because you need to know this whenever you're starting to craft items so that you don't accidentally craft something that is no longer profitable. All right, and then the next part of TSM is the actual profile itself. You're going to hit \TSM and you're going to be able to pull this up. It's going to come up with the dashboard every time, and the dashboard has some really great information. It shows you this graph here that you can see at what time on which day you had a certain amount of gold, how much you're gaining, and how much you're losing. You can also come up here and see this data from day, week, month, year, as long as you have the data collected through TSM. And it'll also show you your total gold earned, average profit, what your top items are for your sales, expenses, and for your profit, and what your most profitable item is, which is really nice information to know. You can also come up here and select which player or which character you want to actually look and see this information on. Now, if you come over to Ledger, you can see that we have an inventory, revenue, expenses, and failed auctions tab. In the inventory tab, it takes all of the items that you have on your character on the auction house, in your bags, and in your bank, and gives you a total value. You can also filter these by groups when you have groups set up. You can also search certain items to see if you have them on this character. And this also shows you the price source that it's using to get these prices and values. Next, you have the revenue tab. This is a great spot for you to spend a good bit of time looking and seeing what you've done right and what you've done wrong. For sales, this is going to show you how many items you've sold and what you've made on those items that have been sold, on which characters, and over how long. You can filter this by groups. You can do types and look at auctions, mail, trade, or vendor. You can look at rarity of items. You can also separate this into different characters and look at their data, as well as changing the time frame of how long you want the data to be looked at. The other tab shows you money transfers as well as mission table gold. So you can keep up with how much you're making over a certain amount of time and how much you have coming in. And then finally, you have the resale tab. Now, I want to talk about this specifically because I don't want people to freak out when they see, like mine shows right here, that it is negative 501 gold. If you look at my last 60 days, it says negative 74,971 gold. And what this is doing is this only takes into consideration items that you have purchased and then either sold back on the auction house or sold to a vendor. This does not account for items that you have bought, like different materials, and then crafted into something else. This is simply items that you have bought and then relisted. And then you have your expenses tab. This tells you how many items you have bought, what groups they're in, how long you want to look at the data. It tells you how many items that you've bought within the last 30 days is 174,000 items with a total spent of 3,900,000 gold. You can also look at the other tab and see repairs and postage, as well as money transfers going out from you. And then finally, you have the failed auctions tab. This will allow you to see which items have expired and not sold, and which items you have canceled and then had to relist. So now moving on to groups. Under the groups, this is where if you see me or anyone else posting a profile for TSM with groups and operations, this is where you're going to import it. You can come right here under groups, hit import, and it will bring up this right here. All you have to do is post the import string that we post, and then it'll allow you to download it. But as you can see here, I have a couple of groups that are already set up on this character. Yours will be empty and it will have just the base group. You can start making your own groups by setting up and searching under the base group and then making a group that comes up over here. And I can show you how to do that right here. All you would do is hit this button right here. It would bring up a new group and we can make this our test group. And say I just want to take a couple of items that are in my bags. So I have our test group here and I can look right here and maybe I want to put lacerite ore and lightless silk from my bags over into this group. So now you hit add items and now lacerite ore and lightless silk are in our test group. Each group is going to have different operations and settings. However, when you make a new group, it's going to have all of the default operations set up on this. And groups, operations, mailing operations, auctioning operations, and crafting operations, we will go over all of that in a group specific specific video about TSM. But this is how you just get started selecting your items. Now, you can also select items to go into a certain group by searching them under the base group. So even though I can see it right here, if I wanted to search callus hides, I can do callus and then hit callus hides and select it. I can then come down here to the bottom, select group, and then I can search for our test group. I can click our test group here, select group, and then it has our group selected there, and then I can move that item. So when I come back over here and hit test group, I can see that callus hides was added to our group. This is a quick and simple way for you to start making your own groups. And if you want to take an example, here is one of my profiles that I have set up for Shadowlands Cooking. When you download it, it will come up with this Shadowlands Cooking tab. You can click a down arrow here and it unlocks everything below it. And you have all of the Shadowlands items, the soul food, light meals, large meals, and the feasts, as well as the materials. If you click the materials here, it'll show you that these are all of the materials that you need to craft the items in Shadowlands. Also, if you click here, you can see that the soul food, the light meals, the large meals, and the feasts are all there as well. This means that everything that is to do with Shadowlands Cooking is under here. But also keep in mind that each item can only be in one group. And next we have the operations tab. Now this is going to be in a more detailed secondary video to this, but I just want to generally cover it in this first video. The auctioning operations tab shows you any operations that you have set up and what they do. So you can see here, if you click my Shadowlands Cooking operation, it'll show you details about it and what groups and how it is actually managed. Then I can look at my posting and it'll show you the exact details of everything that I want it to do. This will show that I want to post the items for 12 hours. Post cap is 100. And then it shows my minimum, maximum, and normal pricing for when I'm posting on the auction house. And this is really the same thing for each of them. The crafting operations that you want to do, how much you want to restock per item, as well as any mailing operations that you want to set up. Shopping operations, sniper operations are what we'll talk about later when you have items that you want to check for low prices, as well as vendoring and warehouse operations. These will all have a large separate video covering these in depth. Using the default operations on these is not bad. However, it's not always optimized. And then finally, we're going to talk about the settings tab. And this has a bunch of things in it that you can set up. It has everything from your profiles and your accounting sync, as well as one of the major things that I want to talk about, and that is the tooltip settings. The tooltip is what pops up whenever you look over in your bags and hover over an item. You can see here for the raw seraph wing that a lot of information has just popped up. And that is because I have a lot of things selected that I want to see from my TSM tooltip. This gives you so many options here that you can scroll down and select which ones you want to see. You can see custom price sources that you set up yourself, as well as milling, prospecting, disenchanting values, how many you have in your full inventory, and all of the auctioning prices, as well as crafting, shopping, your base sniper price, telling you when you should buy at the lowest and what the crafting cost for an item is if it has a crafting cost. Next, we have the accounting, and the accounting just tells you whether or not you want to track certain sales when you purchase or in trades, or don't prompt to record trades. Just a bunch of other settings that you can set up. Then you have appearances, where you can change what you want your actual TSM outline to look like. I just personally like midnight. That's just my aesthetic that I find pleasing. Auctioning, so it gives you cancel scan auction settings, as well as scan completes. You can change any kind of sounds that you want to make. You can change it from the default sounds, as well as whitelisting players. This comes into effect later when we look at the more detailed videos, but this is what you can add when you have someone that just seriously undercuts on items. You can actually ignore their actual name in TSM, which is a great little thing for later when you have someone, like I said, that just continuously undercuts you. Then you have destroying, and this tells you when you do \TSM destroy, when you're doing milling or disenchanting, how you want this set up, as well as mailing, where you can see your inbox settings and your send settings. You can do delay timing, and you can also do a bunch of different things like changing the default sound or how many spaces in your bags you want to keep free at any one time. Next, we're getting into custom sources. Now, this is also going to be in a separate video about groups and crafting. However, adding new custom sources is a more advanced end of TSM, but this allows you to make better price sources and strings that are very customized to what you're wanting to do. Next, you have crafting, and this tells you your default crafting method and also your default craft value method. You can change these around, however, I don't recommend it at first. The default material cost is perfectly fine to leave, and then you can change specific ones later, and I'll show you that whenever I bring up Professions tab. Next, you have macros, and macros are something that you'll definitely need to get used to, and I normally just have mine set for scroll wheel up or down, and it just allows you to use your scroll wheel or any key that you desire to do certain things. So whenever I'm shopping, destroying, canceling auctions, posting auctions, or crafting, I can just simply scroll my scroll wheel up and down, and it will allow me to do all of those things. And then whenever you have updated what you want, any of your modifiers, just hit update existing macro, and TSM will save that setting. And then we have the browse sniper options. This tells you what you want to focus on when you're looking at general browsing, as well as search options for the disenchanting and sniper options. You can also change the sound to be more or less obnoxious so that you can hear it in the background if you're just sitting there doing a sniper scan watching some YouTube. And then finally we have vendoring, and this just shows you right here, you can set what TSM is going to show you down here when you're vendoring items. You can also use this to ignore certain items that you never want to vendor, which is also a nice thing to add in if you're starting to get really stacked up on a bunch of different items. And then one of the last things that we're going to talk about in this video is the crafting. And one of the last things that we're going to talk about in the video is the crafting UI. Now, you can change back and forth here to the regular UI or the TSM4. So now let's talk about a little bit of what each thing here shows us. TSM has this broken down to where you can actually see everything that you can craft, and then also see which items you want to favorite by selecting the star and favoriting items or unfavoriting items. It also shows you how many of them you can craft and what the actual profit for that craft will be. On the right here, it does also show you the percentage sale, so you can see whether or not an item is actually worth crafting. Now, for those of you that have been using my profile or others' profiles, this is how you restock using a profile. So you'll come up here and you'll hit TSM groups. Now, when you do TSM groups, it's going to bring up everything, but then you can go through and select what you want. So we're talking about cooking right now, so let's select Shadowlands cooking. I'm going to hit restock selected items, and using my profile and all the operations, this is showing me how many of these items I need to restock. And then down here, it shows me how long it's going to take me to craft all these items, as well as what the estimated cost is and what my estimated profit is. And the wonderful thing with this is if you have a lot of these things that you want to craft, like say this is my tailorer and I also want to craft all of my tailoring items that I want to restock, I can simply click tailoring and then also restock, and it will pull up everything for tailoring as well, but also keep my cooking. Now, if you come up here and hit the gathering tab, this is going to tell you right away what items you need to gather to be able to craft the items necessary here that you're wanting to restock. This tells you which items you need to get, where you need to get them, some of them for the vendor, some of them from the auction house. And then you can also define over here in the corner, when you have guild banks and alts, you can actually see where you need to get these items from, and if some of your alts that you have set up on TSM as well actually have some of these items. And like I showed in my TSM cooking video, if you come over here and hit your open task list, it will bring up everything that you need in the TSM task list. It'll tell you exactly which items you need to buy from the auction house and which items you need to buy from the vendor. TSM task list is a great way for you to keep up to date date on cooldowns and expirations as well, and gives you a very, very easy UI to use to restock items. And the final part of the crafting tab is the reports tab. So you have your crafts and you have your materials. Now your crafts here are going to show you what items you can craft and what items are profitable or not profitable. It'll also show you the percentage sale, and you can actually filter these by however you want. You can filter them by name in alphabetical order. You can filter them by operations, how many you have in your bags, the crafting cost. So we can do the lowest crafting cost here, or we can hit this again and do the highest crafting cost. We then can do the item value. So we can do the lowest item value all the way up to the highest item value. And then you can also do profit. So you can see which items I can craft, how much profit they are, how much profit they are not. And then finally, you can do by profit. So if I click this, I can see these are my least profitable items and which ones are losing profit on my server, as well as hitting it again, and it shows me which items are the most profitable on my server. And then over here on the corner, you can also look at sell rate. So I can see the lowest sell rate items and which ones, so that I can see these are high profit items, but they're selling very slowly. I can hit this again and it'll show me the highest sell items and how much I'm making. And as you can see here from another video that we're going to be talking about, deep sea bags, crafting cost is 97 gold and item value is 195 gold, selling at 0.49 sell rate at a 98 gold profit per sell, which is very, very nice. And one of the final parts in crafting is materials. Now, under this, you can search any material that you need to search for any of the profession. And why is this tab so important? This tab is what actually helps TSM determine what your craft and profit value is. And like earlier when I was talking about the custom price sources, the custom price sources and this material report are going to be huge key factors in you being able to properly determine your profit and crafting costs. And I'll give you a perfect example here. If I come over here and do something that I just redid not too long ago, which is number thread. And when you hover over number thread, you can see that the vendor buy price is 9 gold. However, mine is set to 5. I manually clicked on this and set my material to 5 because I have a goblin that I can buy number thread from for 5 gold. So that is why I changed my price, and I'll show you why this is so significant. One of the things that I've personally been doing recently is going back into some of the raw gold shuffles now that I can buy shrouded cloth for so cheap. If you take this and you go back to the normal price of 9 gold and save it, you'll see that a majority of people can buy this number thread for 9 gold. And what does that do? When you come over here to the crafting again and hit crafting and look under one of the items that I make, which is the shrouded cloth cape, it shows me here that my crafting cost is 41 gold and 60 silver. Now the shrouded cloth cape sells for 36 gold, 56 silver, meaning that for a raw gold farm, this is not worth it, or is it? So that is why you need to change those prices on some of these things. TSM is calculating right here my crafting cost. It is showing me that I need 4 shrouded cloth and 4 number threads to craft one of these. So on shrouded cloth, it's taking my smart average buy, which is 1 gold and 29 silver, and multiplying that by 4. And then over here, it's also taking number thread and taking the 9 gold vendor buy price and multiplying it by 4. When you do that, you do get 41 gold and 60 silver. However, I just told you a second ago that I buy my number thread for 5 gold each on my goblin and send it to my main. So this calculation right here is incorrect. So if you come up here to your reports again and hit materials and search for number thread, I click the number thread and I can change this back to my 5 gold price. So why is this significant? Well, when you come back to crafting, now look at the crafting cost of shrouded cloth capes. So now if I buy shrouded cloth at 1 gold, 29 silver, and I can get all of my number thread at 5 gold from my goblin, it's going to cost me 25 gold and 60 silver to make 1 shrouded cloth cape, which means that I'm making almost 10 gold profit per craft, which is a huge difference from the first calculation. And you can change this price for any item in the game. Be careful changing too many of them and not remembering which ones that you've changed, so that I can make sure that my crafting cost is up to date. And then the last thing that we're going to talk about is the TSM task list that we just spoke about a little bit ago. So let's cover that in just a little bit more detail. So when you click on your TSM groups to restock and you have your items that you're going to restock, you're then going to hit gathering, and then you're going to hit open task list. Opening the task list tells you which items you need to buy to restock the items that you have just selected that you want to restock. All you need to do here is simply close this and find an auction house. Luckily, I have one right here on my back. And what you're going to do is you're going to come to the Browse tab, and you can see here that the Buy from Auction House button right here changed to Scan. Hit Scan All, and the TSM task list will automatically interact with TSM and show you which items you have here to restock. Then you simply click the items, hit Buy Out, and it'll tell you to buy the exact amount that you need to restock this item. So buy that, and then you can select the other ones and buy them as well. Now the TSM task list is wonderful because it will also keep new players from buying items on the auction house that are unnecessary. A perfect example of this is within the Shadowlands materials list. I don't have any of the vendor items selected, and there's a reason for that. If you go to browse and say, let's just take an example and search for the luster wheat flour. If you search for the luster wheat flour, you can see here that someone is selling them for 2 gold each. Now, if you hover over it with the tooltip, this is another really great way to use the tooltip. You can see here that the vendor buy price of this item for one of them is 35 silver from the vendor. That means that the person that's posted this up on the auction house is trying to get sales from people that don't know that this is a vendor item. And just so that you can see the difference, let's open up our bags here and look at something that you cannot buy from the vendor. So Phantasmal Haunch is something that you need to farm and you cannot buy from the vendor. If you look under your TSM General info on the tooltip here, you can see that there is a vendor sell price, but no vendor buy price. So if you look at an item and it shows you under your tooltip that there is a vendor buy price, do more research and find out where you can get that item. You do not need to buy it off of the auction house. Now, there are some very, very rare exceptions to this, but we'll discuss that in a different video. So finishing what we're going to talk about here with the task list, if you come over here to where I would normally restock at the cooking vendor, I can come over to the vendor and select vendor. Now, you can see here that this is something that I wanted to bring up. This is the regular WoW UI for the vendor for cooking. However, you can see that it says that it's not open on the task list. The TSM task list will only interact with TSM windows. So if you select here and select TSM, it'll bring up the actual TSM vendor buy window. Now, it still hasn't updated, so you just need to exit out and then reopen it, and it'll say buy. And the reason that it says buy is because you opened it up in the TSM vendor window. Now, the beautiful thing about task list as well, like I said before, not only does it tell you exactly what you need of the item on the auction house, it also tells you which item you need from the vendor. So you simply hit buy and it buys all of the items that you need and tells you which items you now need to get from your mail. And that is going to wrap up our beginner's guide and overview of TSM. With this information, you should be able to better understand all the parts of TSM, and this will help you start building your own profiles and have a general, better understanding of all the parts of TSM. I'm going to be covering each major part of TSM in great detail over this series, so if you don't want to miss out, then subscribe and hit the notifications bell so that you know when my new videos release. And if you haven't already, join the Discord, follow me on Twitch. We're streaming every Monday, 8:30 p.m. Central, and if you want more exclusive content and pre-release info, then support me on Patreon. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, please comment, like, and subscribe down below, and I will see you all in the next video.